Our next guest controversially did head was it WINZ at the time, social welfare. She's a local body activist and politician, and I think she's someone who speaks just a lot of common sense when it comes to these issues. And I was thinking yesterday, I couldn't have my rave yesterday and then walk away from this story and this issue, as the media is wont to do. So Christine Rankin, former CEO of WINZ, joins us now.
Good morning.
Good morning. Look, it's so bloody depressing to be talking to you on this issue again, Christine, but 2006 were the Kahui twins, and they weren't the first kids murdered by their caregivers in New Zealand, and they bloody were, and no one's going to sue me for defamation saying that. But I looked at the figures yesterday. Every 5 weeks, a baby's killed in New Zealand. And I just thought we spend all our time talking about bloody school lunches, and kids are literally dying, Christine. It seems to be worse than it was.
It is much worse than it was. And can I establish my credibility in this? Because not only was I part of welfare, but I was the chief executive of For the Sake of Our Children Trust, which was an anti-child abuse trust, and with Bob McCoskrie and Garth McVicker, we led every protest against child abuse. I exposed every case that I possibly could. We organised the 3-minute silence for Nia, who was put in a dryer, for God's sake, Nia Glassy. And everyone in this country stopped for 3 minutes. I was so proud, and I truly believed we were at a turning point. No, we weren't. Things are much worse. And I also want to say that I come from a childhood of absolute and disgusting abuse. My father was Maori. He had the warrior gene, which he couldn't control. And what he did to us, he destroyed us. What he did to us, it is a wonder that we actually survived, but we paid the price. We used to talk later in our lives about how one of us wasn't murdered and buried in the backyard and no one would have ever known. So I've got a lot of knowledge and credibility when it comes to talking about child abuse. And it's disgusting, and it's disappeared off the New Zealand radar because Maori have made it a race issue. And what it really should be is a children's despair issue, because you only see the tip of the iceberg when a baby's murdered. Do you know this is not a one-off? It's not where someone loses their temper and kills a child. This is daily torture for the children who are abused in New Zealand. Terrifying, disgusting acts on their little bodies. And we say, oh God, we must do something about this. Well, nothing's been done about it for years and years and years.
That's an opening stanza that I greatly respect, Christine, and thank you for being so forthright and forward. I think, looking as a journalist at the way too that it's been covered, is we have the outrage, we have the prurient headline about the poor kid. Everyone goes tut, tut, tut. And I've been fighting against my audience for the last 24 hours. They said, this is a race issue, Sean. And I said, let's not make it a race issue or an excuse to be racist. And I guess that's my middle-class journalistic sensibilities. Is this an issue of ethnicity? Is it primarily a problem in one community or not? Or is it a problem of class or race or income?
No, it is. And Maori have said their fight back whenever because I have been accused of being absolutely racist for raising this for years and years and fighting it. They've always labelled me as racist for doing it, and I've said all I care about is the future of those babies and what they're enduring. They've made it a race issue. They've said, leave us alone. We will take care of our own. They're not. They've said, it's your fault. Colonialism did this. You taught us to beat our babies. You gave us alcohol. You bought in drugs, meaning everybody else. It is your fault. Leave us alone and we'll take care of it. Look, right up until a couple of years ago, I was involved with Maori babies here in Taupo being taken out of really good homes because they weren't Maori, where they were established and loved, having come from the most appalling situations, put back with a whānau, and oh my God, the results have been frightening. So why can't we deal with this as a problem of people who severely abuse their children, whose children live in circumstances that most New Zealanders couldn't even imagine. You know, we had a child in one of our shops the other day. It was kicked in the aisle and called the C word. You know, how do people expect these children to grow up? Do they think they're going to grow up and be ambitious and successful and reasonable little human beings? They're our rapists and our murderers and our thieves.
And I just reflected
angry.
today, the Kahui twins would be 19, 20 years old now, Christine. And I wonder what sort of people they would be.
Oh, dear God, I hate to think, because that environment, honestly, most people can't even imagine, Sean, what it's like on a day-to-day basis. You look at that baby that's had 9 broken bones.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the agony that bubble was in day after day, the fear of someone coming near it and what was going to happen to it?
Yeah.
And we're not allowed to talk about it. Do you know I used to get calls almost every day from the media? Now, years, I've never had one. Not one. We're not allowed to talk about it.
That's something I want to discuss too, because much of this, I looked yesterday at the Post newspaper, the killing of the baby at Foxton Beach was one paragraph on page 3, one paragraph. And I thought, what's happened to a country? And then I looked at the stats and I started talking about it on air and I got amazing response. What's happened to a country where, as I said, today, page 3 of the Dominion Post, half the page dedicated to some lefty bloody bureaucrats leaked a memo about school lunches.
Yeah.
Right, but
yeah,
we get to page 7 down the bottom. Police detail injuries of 3-month-old baby girl with 9 broken bones, right? So why are we making national scandals out of things that aren't, and I think ignoring a real crisis, our baby killing crisis?
It has been a crisis for a long time. Do you know we go between number 1 and number 2 in the world for murdering, sexually abusing, and in the world we go between number 1 and 2. When the stats are done, I think at one stage we went down to number 3. So you know, this if this was happening to another group in our society, and I remember Pat Booth, who I don't know if you have any memory of, he was the editor of the Star and fought child abuse for a long time, and he once said, if this many politicians were being killed every year, for example, you know, a group of people, and there was this kind of murder rate in there, the whole country would be finding a way to fix it. But it's our unknown little babies, and I sometimes think it's Maori babies, so does that not matter either? You know, we're in this really strange, I don't know how to explain it. It breaks my heart. It really does. Not many kids come out of that and make it. They really don't. And we all suffer. The things you suffer in your life, the fact you can't sustain relationships very easily and you are attracted to drugs and alcohol, which thank God I never was, but one of my family was really badly.
I know of what...
3 of us have broken the cycle. One never did.
I know of what you talk, Christine. I do, and from personal experience as well. It seems to me we have also decided, and I think we recognised this problem many years back, and the solution was that if we gave Māori control of the delivery of social support services, they would be able to solve this problem.
It's too big. It's too big. There aren't enough whānau out there who can take these very, very troubled children, because it's not just taking a child into your home and giving it love and attention. These children are damaged by the time they get to anyone, no matter when they're taken. And so it's not easy. I don't know how Maori organisations could pull it off, and I know that they want to, but there aren't the safe spots to put. There aren't enough. The population's not big enough, but the problem's enormous.
We've got to do something, Christine, and I know this sounds, I don't know, we have a national inquiry into the bloody COVID vaccine, but not this. Do you get what I'm saying? And I'm kind of at a loss.
Well, the state does pour into these families when they're known, and they're usually known. Often, Oranga Tamariki have been alerted to the issue. Sometimes they can't get to them because they say they're under-resourced. I don't know. I feel sorry for Oranga Tamariki. I truly do. But I don't know how it's going to be fixed. You've got to change society, and we do put a lot of support. They say wraparound support. $1 million can go into one family, and the abuse still continues.
I want to address some of the last 24 hours have been so interesting, the reaction I've had to this. And I want your response to some of the stock standard responses, and there's truth in them, and there's also prejudice in them, and there's frustration in them.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with one, and my colleague Michael Laws will say this. Why don't we just stop them breeding? Why don't we stop the ferals breeding? Your response to that?
Because don't we live in a democracy that, oh God, I hate to say it. I mean, I know where he's coming from. I understand why that would come from your heart because of the damage and the pain. But I don't think it's the kind of society we live in. It's never going to happen. And that's a reality. That's not going to be the solution in this country.
All right. Why don't we take away the welfare state that makes children and babies something that can be commoditised by young women who are at school with no skills? You get knocked up, you get some income from the government and get a housing supplement.
And that is true. And we could, like other countries, put a cap on 2 children. You don't get paid for any more.
But then the child suffers.
Well, that's what everybody says. But, that child's suffering anyway. Do you think they're living in a lovely home, getting 3 meals a day and a kiss every day and told that they're loved? They're not. They're often getting absolutely ignored and abused every day. So that doesn't make them safe. Also, when I was doing the work and working closely with the police, I became very aware of the fact that it's often not a biological father that does the damage to these children. It's a boyfriend. So there are a series of boyfriend women let terrible men into their lives.
Oh, yeah. Believe me, I know that.
They stand beside the man instead of the child. So the child gets beaten and they help. They help.
Yeah, the old saying, a bad man's better than no man at all. I know that. I know that one.
Yeah.
Okay, look, the other thing people are saying, and it's kind of the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, we should compel people to give evidence in cases of child abuse or infanticide. There shouldn't be a shut-up option.
Totally. Yeah. And if you murder a child, and I always call it murder, that child is totally defenceless. You murder a child, you should be going to prison for life.
Okay, but we've got cases now. We look at the baby Ruthless Empire. That's what the idiots named their child. We look at the Ruthless Empire case. Everyone's just gone, Mum. Well, a lot of people have rung into me, so they should just be locked up until they tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, lock them up until they talk. Absolutely. We're pathetic. These are the logical, sensible things that you could do. Have a real outcome if you dare to hurt a baby. And, we went through the anti-smacking stuff and they connected it with
and
our
I've had some texts today. Isn't the anti-smacking working well? Hasn't that protected kids? And I've got to say too, Christine, this government is always getting tough on crime, and we're going to get instant fine for shoplifters, and we've stopped the ram raids. Yet they can't say... And we're going to lock up people until they answer police questions about infanticide and killing babies.
Well, I think because the lid's put on this so much, probably even thought about it with all the things I've got. I admire and like our police minister. I think he's got courage and guts and he's there when it matters. So I really admire him. And if this is raised as an issue, I trust him to take it on board. And I will say that to him. I just don't think it's been raised as an issue for such a long time. The murders happen, the beatings happen, the sexual abuse happens, and we just close our eyes and keep on going. So maybe what you're doing now is actually going to bring about a change. But, Sean, I don't think so. Not really.
Well, I want to read a text I've got doing this. Sean, I have never in my 65 years marched or protested for anything, even those I've had strong views on, but I am sure others, would take to the streets for these babies. Someone out there organise one, please. And I have to say, as a journalist,
well,
I don't like getting involved, but I'm feeling that my lifetime watching this happen, and the same stories go round and round and round like Delcelia Whitaker in the frickin' spin dryer. And we need to break that cycle.
I organised many protests and thousands of people turned out throughout the country. Has it changed anything? Not one thing. Things have got worse and worse and worse. So unless the politicians determinedly, and I've pronounced that badly, take this in hand, and even saying that, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It's so big, it's so evil, it's so extensive. And now it's got much more evil because it's hidden and covered up because we cannot offend anyone. And we're scared of the labels. Well, I've had many labels and you just live with it and it doesn't kill you, you know.
Let me think. Let's stay in touch. And I'm just inclined to say we can. Let me put my mind to it. Look, you were Kristen, can I just say, I sat there yesterday and came off air and thought, got to do something more. You were the absolute perfect person to speak to today. I thank you so much for your time and for your honesty.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's talk soon.
We will. I'll do anything.
Good on you.
To help.
Thanks, Kristen.
Bye.
Cheers. Whoa.